Hello and welcome to another edition of Only in Illinois from Reboot Illinois. I'm Madeline Dubeck here with Matt Dietrich, and just when you think you've survived another election, there's already talk of the next one underway. We're talking this week about the entry into the U.S. Senate race for 2016 by Congresswoman Tammy Duckworth. She's a Hoffman Estates Democrat that's in the northwest suburbs of Chicago, and she has declared that she would like the seat currently occupied by Republican U.S. Senator Mark Kirk. Nobody's ever seen a race quite like this one, have they, Matt?
No, and if Tammy Duckworth ends up being the Democratic nominee, what you would have are two military veterans who are suffering from disabilities running against each other. Mark Kirk, who won election to the Senate seat that was Barack Obama's Senate seat in 2010, suffered a very serious stroke in 2012, and he was out for about a year, and then in January 2013 he made really heroic re-entry to the Senate, and ever since then he has really earned a lot of respect and admiration from people because he has continued his recovery and has been very visible and worked very hard at staying out there. Then you would have Tammy Duckworth, who in November of 2004 was a helicopter pilot in the Army in Iraq, and her helicopter was shot down. She was nearly killed. She lost both legs and
damage to her arm also.
Right, and she returned to active life almost immediately. She ran for Congress the first time in 2006 and was defeated by Peter Roscom. No sooner did she lose that election than Rod Blagojevich appointed her as the Director of Veterans Affairs for the state of Illinois. She served in that capacity for a little over 2 years, and then she went to Washington to work for the Department of Veterans Affairs there. And in 2012, she ran against Republican Joe Walsh in the 8th Congressional District, also in the suburbs, and won by a good 10-point margin, and then she was reelected in November 2014, again by about 10 points. Now, when Mark Kirk ran against Alexi Janulius in 2010, it was a pretty close race. Kirk won by about 1.5 percentage points, and he had the advantage of having an opponent in Alexi Janulius who had some controversy surrounding him. His family's banking business was coming under some question. So so that was a very close race. So here you have the Republican Kirk running in a blue state.
In a presidential election year.
Presidential election year.
When Democrats tend to turn out more against a Democratic heroic war veteran. But, I think people will remember, as you said, the heroic return of Mark Kirk, where he literally made his way up the huge, steep staircase of the U.S. Capitol steps. He's already raised more than $1 million in this first quarter, getting ready for his re-election campaign. I spoke to him at a radio show appearance on election night back in last November, and he said, absolutely, I'm in this thing. Joe Walsh, who you mentioned, actually has floated the idea that he might challenge Kirk in the primary. And there's been a couple of other Democratic members of Congress from Illinois talking about possibly running for Senate.
Robin Kelly being chief among them.
And Bill Foster, also from the northwest suburbs. Sherry Bustos had thought about it. It was mentioned for a bit, but said she is going to support Tammy Duckworth, essentially. So how do you think this will all play out?
Well, what makes this so interesting is that the big question had been if the Democrats are going to challenge Mark Kirk, is Mark Kirk going to get a huge sympathy vote because of, he's probably earned it.
Sure.
Now you have Tammy Duckworth, and so there is no sympathy vote, really. It's going to come down to, I think, to ideology. Mark Kirk just recently signed on to the controversial letter that was sent to Iran, and that ruffled a lot of feathers. I'm sure that's going to be a big part of whoever his opponent is going to bring that up. Already we're seeing, we're getting inundated with emails from the Illinois Republican Party emphasizing Tammy Duckworth's connection to Rod Blagojevich,
Right.
who appointed her to her state position. So I think, and both sides really, really want this seat in the U.S. Senate. The Washington Post said this is the #1 most competitive race in all the Senate for 2016.
Already, they've decided that.
Yeah. So I think you're going to see a lot of money poured into this, and I think this is going to be a very, very intense
It'll
race.
be interesting because Mark Kirk does know how to run as a moderate Republican in the state of Illinois, which still leans blue. I think in many ways Governor Rauner kind of followed that same template and tried to stay away from the social issues as much as he could as he ran. So it's going to, already there, as you said, the Washington Post national publications are saying this is the one to watch.
Right. And, you know, on the moderate front, we've seen just this week with all the controversy in Indiana's religious freedom law, you had Mark Kirk coming out and saying, I don't support this. So, you know, he's emphasizing that he's going to
Absolutely
be that moderate that he's been known for, and which got him elected in the first place in 2010.
Right. So fascinating race. It's quite a ways away, but the fun has already begun. We'll be watching it, so stay tuned. That's it for this week. We'll see you on the next edition of Only in Illinois.